Hello everyone. Let's start today our discussion of another American novelist, Alice Walker. Alice Walker. She was born in 1944. She is an American novelist, short story writer, poet, and social activist. She was born in Eatonton, Georgia. This is the place, a rural farming town. That one has to remember that she belongs to that rural town, Eatonton, that is in Georgia. Her parents were sharecroppers. Sharecroppers, what is sharecropping? A form of agriculture in which a landowner allows a tenant to use the land in return for a share of the crops produced on their portion of land. So sharecropping is a kind of method that is there in rural area where the landlords, the people who have had land, they used to give that land to other people so that they can have the production in that land, and in return of that they had to give some share in the crop to the owner of the land. So her parents were sharecroppers. When 8, she sustained an injury to her right eye. See, from here you'll have to understand how the life of different people is affected in different circumstances. When 8, she sustained an injury to her right eye. What happened then? In absence of immediate medical attention, she became permanently blind in that eye. She could not have treatment at the right time because of the poverty that her parents had. So she could not be treated at the right time and she had to pay for that. She became blind in that eye, in the right eye. She talked about it in her essay. She wrote an essay. The name of the essay is Beauty When the Other Dancer is the Self. The name of the essay is Beauty When the Other Dancer is the Self. In that particular essay, she talks about that event, how she became blind when she was 8 years old. An avowed feminist. She is an avowed feminist. Avowed, you understand? Openly acknowledged. I mean, everybody knows that she is very well-known feminist. Alice Walker is a well-known feminist. And yes, you must remember one term that she coined. The term is womanist. 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 What is the meaning of womanist? To mean a black feminist or feminist of color. So for black feminism, she, introduced womanism. In theory, we have a term feminism. And when she had to specify feminism for the black woman, she gave it a term that is womanism, and thus gave the term womanist, which means black feminist or feminist of color. See, it's very important to understand as when we read Dalit literature, we see how Dalits used to be marginalized, they used to be enslaved by the so-called higher castes. So they had very bad condition in the society. They were underprivileged, they were marginalized, they were deprived, they were enslaved, as if they were not the part of the actual world. So they were marginalized. But ironical thing is that in that becoming marginalized, they used to enslave their women. As in general, behavior, we see how patriarchy has made women suffer a lot. So even in Dalit literature, you find that how patriarchy has affected the women, the Dalit women as well. In the similar manner, as we see blacks, they were victim of racism. They were victim of this bifurcation of white and black, the racism. They were discriminated on the level of their color of the skin. They were marginalized, they were exploited, they were enslaved. But at the same time, in black people's society, when we see that how black women, they were re-marginalized. I mean, when we talk of feminism, this particular term feminism does not include all the women. The discrimination of at all the level, at all the strata. That is why they had to talk of themselves in a different way, with a different term. And ultimately this term came, womanist, coined by Alice Walker. Okay, let's talk about her writings. Once, that is the name of her book of poetry. It was the first book of poetry by Alice Walker. Then we have The Third Life of George Copeland. This is the novel, the first novel written by her, published in 1970. What is the theme of it? It explores the life of Grange Copeland, that is the name of the protagonist, an abusive, irresponsible sharecropper husband and father. So, see, this is the center of her first novel. She talks about a man, Grange Copeland, who is abusive by nature, who is very irresponsible, who does not understand, who does not makes himself accountable for towards his family as a husband or as a father, and by profession he is a sharecropper. So this was the first novel, The Third Life of Grange Copeland. In 1972, Walker taught a course in black women's writers at the University of Massachusetts, Boston. It means she worked as a teacher as well. Alice Walker has worked as a teacher as well. She taught a course. The name of the course was Black Women's Writers. See, it's a very soothing kind of thing when we see that how the people belonging to a particular community, how they care for that, how they try to preserve their identity, how they try to preserve their literature, how they try to enlighten their people. The similar manner we are having this Alice Walker here, who taught black women's writers. That is the topic, that is the course. Where? At the University of Massachusetts. Boston. This was done in 1972. Then came her second novel in 1976. Its name was Meridian. 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 It was about activist workers in the South during the civil rights movement. See how her personal life has affected her writing. Then we have The Color Purple, the very famous novel that is there in the syllabus. The Color Purple. It was published in 1982. Her best known novel. It follows a young, troubled black woman. So here we have the protagonist as a female, and she is young and black woman fighting her way through not just racist white culture but patriarchal black culture as well. See, this is the thing that I talked about, that the black women used to fight not only racism against this white people culture, but they had to fight patriarchy as well, even in their own culture, in black culture. So we have this novel, The Color Purple, which deals with that particular theme of a young troubled black woman fighting her way through racist and patriarchal cultures. And yes, since the novel got much fame, it won the National Book Award for handcover fiction and Pulitzer Prize for fiction. So she won Pulitzer Prize for fiction for this novel, The Color Purple. When we talk of other novels which she wrote, there we find The Temple of My Familiar, and other one is Possessing the Secret of Joy. Her work is focused on the struggles of black people. That is the center of her writing. Struggles of black people, particularly women, and their lives in a racist, sexist, and violent society. A racist society which bifurcate the society into black and white, which discriminates the people on the basis of their color. Sexist society, which discriminates the people on the basis of their sexes, male and female, how females are marginalized. Violent society, how you will see by reading several literature, you will understand that how people, it has become history, it has become a kind of habit of the people showing power. They used to become violent, they are becoming violent, they always become violent. So the violent society, through violence they show their power. Then we have her collection of short fiction. The name of this work is The Way Forward is with a Broken Heart. It was published in 2000. It explores love and race relations. Here you find that how she, in her own life, when she got married with a person not of her own race, which kind of feeling that she had while living in the society. So love and race relations that she had in her own life, that we find here in the form of collection of short fiction. That is The Way Forward is with a Broken Heart. And yes, so one thing, the point that one should remember regarding her. Yeah, she is, as I told you, she is an activist. How did she become that? She met Martin Luther King Jr. as Baby Kamble, the Marathi writer of Dalit literature, as she met once in her childhood Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar. In the similar manner, we are having this lady here. She met Martin Luther King Jr. You know Martin Luther King Jr.? The great black leader of US in 19th century. 20th century, sorry. When she was a student in early 1960s. So when she was a student, she met him, Martin Luther King Jr., who is famous for his speech, "I have a dream that one day." That is very famous speech by him. And Martin Luther King Jr. was very much inspired by the non-violence practice of Mahatma Gandhi in India. And ironically, both people, the follower of non-violence, Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., they both were assassinated. They both were killed for political motive. So when she was a student in early 1960s, she met Martin Luther King Jr. She credits him for her decision to return to the American South. She got enlightenment after meeting him, and then she returned to American South as an activist in civil rights movement. See, when you talk of America, you can think of America by dividing it in two parts, Northern America and Southern America. Northern America is basically the urban part, and the southern one is basically the rural part where several plantations take place. So, and that's why even in southern part of America you will find black people living more there. So she belongs to that community. So she decided to return American South as an activist in civil rights movement that was going on there at the time in America. Her specific brand of feminism included advocacy of women of color. Yes, that is her strong point that one should remember. Alice Walker should be remembered as the advocate of women of color. So women of color means black women. She talked much more about them. In 1983, in her collection In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, she coined the term womanist. As we talked about this term, the womanist, she coined this term in one of her collections, and its name was In Search of Our Mother's Gardens. What does she state? She states that womanism gives us a word of our own. That is how this womanism is, distinguished from feminism. She says, womanism gives us a word of our own because it is a discourse of black women. Through this can become a kind of platform through which we can have discourse of black women and the issues they confront in society. When we talk of womanism, it as a movement came into fruition in 1985. Remember this one? Womanism means the rights of the black woman. Womanism as a movement came into fruition in 1985 at the American Academy of Religion. It started from there, and Society of Biblical Literature, to address black women's concerns from their own intellectual, physical, and spiritual perspectives. See, as we talk of the disabled people, the specifically abled people, when we form different kind of policies for them, for that we need to have association with them, we need to have their views, because what can be the best for them, they are to decide, they should decide. In the similar manner, when one talks about black people or black woman, obviously when one wants to do the best thing for them, for that their intellectual, physical, and spiritual perspectives are very much needed. And for that, this womanism came into existence, so that black women could have their own voice. They could have their own perspective, whether it is intellectual, physical, or spiritual. One more thing that one should know about her is she has been a long time sponsor of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, and this is how you can see Alice Walker as the person of international canon, the person of international repute. Okay, so this is all about Alice Walker today. We'll talk about her novel The Color Purple in coming videos. Thank you.